Welcome, everyone. Yes, please. We're in the meeting format today, so feel free to enter your name and your location to let us know where you are. We're so happy that you've come, and we hope you have some good questions. We're going to start in just a minute and let people come in, unless Diane gives me the nod to start right away. Oh my goodness. Someone is here from New Zealand. What time of night is it for you? We are so honored and pleased that you're with us.
I tell you, I'm here because I've attended every single one of your salons later, but this is the first time I've got up in the middle of the night to be here on, in person.
Wonderful. We're so happy to have you with us. All right, everyone. Happy full moon. And welcome to Salon number 52, the gift of your questions in the Maternal Gift Economy Breaking Through series. I just want to preface that we started our salons right during the pandemic. And so we are very happy that we've continued on, and we're very happy that you're with us now. As you can see, we're actually in a different format. In this particular salon, we have Genevieve, Vaughan, and friends from the International Feminists for the Gift Economy Network, including Peggy Antrobus, Angela Dolmetsch, Angela Miles, Maria Suarez, and soon to join us is Frieda Werden. There are others that are also here from our network. They've been traveling, some of them, and some of them, but these are the women who have agreed to actually help answer whatever questions you have. And for those of you in the network, if you would like to also respond, you can always give me a nudge. Raise your hand and I'll call on you. So I am Letitia, your moderator. Without further ado, I think we're all here for the same reason, which is you've heard about the maternal gift economy. You might have questions, big and small. There are no wrong or bad questions, so please feel free to ask your question. But before we actually take the first question, let me see if Genevieve, did you have anything that you'd like to say before we get started? Or are you just ready?
No, I just want to say hello and welcome. So glad you all came.
All right. Well, we're up for the challenge. So I see that we have some hands up already. So Delia from West Virginia, would you like to unmute and say your name? You need to unmute, my friend.
It is DL. And
DL.
I will just listen and may have a question later, but I wanted Genevieve to know my trajectory for getting here because I could say my name is DL and I'm a Zoomaholic as a result of the pandemania. And I believe, Genevieve, that I first learned of you through Helen Wang and her Mago whale thing, and I have enjoyed her, and I believe that was my first introduction to you and the salon. But I am also a member of Charles Eisenstein's remote community, The New and Ancient Story. And as you know, he works within the gift economy. And so I have posted this opportunity for the Q&A on that site, but also through my trajectory of Zooming, I made it to the Nonviolent Global Liberation and courses of Mickey Kashtan, who adores you. And you probably know that she wants to have you on something that is hosted by NGL. And so I just want you to know that not only am I a fan of your life's work and your current whatever path you are on, but it is just a pleasure to see these. I mean, all these have a lot in common, but as you know, they're also very different, and they all look to you for this important aspect of true social change, of living in the gift. So I just really honor you, Genevieve.
Thank you so much, DL. Jen?
Thank you so much. I have to remember to unmute. Yeah, thanks so much. That's great to hear all that. And you're right, there's just this huge group of different groups that kind of have an access that to the maternal gift economy that I think is so important. So thanks so much.
Wonderful. DL, if you think of a question as we come along, please feel free to raise your hand again. Thank you. Susie, can you unmute for us? Welcome. We're looking forward to your question.
Okay, so since I don't see any other hands raised, I actually have two questions. One, I've been having for a very, very long time. I first became acquainted with you before the salon, with your work before the salons, and then I came to a couple of them live during the pandemic, and since then I've been a little less Zoomy, but I sometimes listen to them after. And my question for all this time has been about, if we're not doing activism, active activism, and if we're not living in the kinds of communities where we can be, putting forth this energy constantly, and if we're not farming, so we can't do, Vandana Shiva's stuff actively, what are the simplest things? And also because we live in the patriarchy, we live in the exchange economy, and that's where we live. If you could say what the very simplest things that we could do to both make more potential for and also perhaps model the maternal gift concepts. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Susie. Jen.
Yes, I'll try
start
to
us off?
I'll try to start it off. Yeah, and maybe others will want to answer too. Well, I think the gift is really a huge thing. I was thinking the other day, the story about the elephant and the blind men. Well, it's like I'm all these blind men, and I can see different parts of the elephant, but I'm not different people. And that if you can, as different people, see these different parts, when each person could take a part and describe that and tell other people about it. When you understand the gift economy, the maternal gift economy, you have an understanding that other people don't have. And so from that point of view, you can explain or talk about it, or just to anybody, and then follow what your thinking is yourself. You understand it. It's when you can understand it, I think, is already a start to shift the perspective of everybody. Each of us, it's like it's not seen, and we need to see it. So that's what I have to say. You can also be kind, but I'm sure you are anyway. So, and find ways of seeing, like if you just smile at somebody that looks sad, that's already a gift that you can give. So just find all the gifts in your life and then give them, or receive them, and interpret things as gifting. Maybe somebody else has a good answer.
Yes, I'm going to call on some of the other women in the network. So Angela M has her hand up. You need to unmute, my friend.
Yeah. My camera's here and I need to look at the bigger screen to see everybody. So this is why I'm looking off into the distance a lot. Anyway, following on what Jen said, it's incredibly exciting to me. The big thing that I feel I do going through the world is seeing exchange and seeing gift. Because I think when we see gift and we see that that is other directional, and then we see that exchange is self-oriented and what a huge difference that makes, that is something that to be seen and to share that with people is huge. Like it's what Jen's saying, it's that paradigm shift, and seeing it. Of course, we want to practice it, and it's tough. And there's many ways we always need to do it, interconnected with exchange. But just to, to me, that is the big thing in all the activism for good, whether it's spiritual or political or economic. Understanding that distinction and seeing one's practice with that knowledge is huge. It's like big, even if we don't manage to save the seeds and, build all the alternative structures right now. So I think it's pretty exciting just going out the front door when you have this bit of knowledge.
Thanks, Angela M. I'm going to check in with Angela D. Angela M is calling in from Canada, and Angela D right now is in Hanoi, Vietnam, but she usually is in Colombia. So Angela D, do you have a suggestion for small, simple things that can be done?
Well, I must say that when I actually became part of the gift economy, that was at the beginning of the century when I met Jen, and I didn't really quite understood what it was all about. So I thought that maybe what she meant is that I could give away what somebody said to me, what a nice necklace you have. So, okay, I gave it to you because that was part of the gift economy. Well, of course, in these 23 years, I have really learned much more than just that. But in the meantime, what happened is that we created this eco-village of Nachira, where women have their houses for free, and where we, to a certain extent, practice the gift economy.
Thanks, Angela D. And maybe what are some of the everyday things in Nashira that people do?
Well, people share. I mean, this is an open house community. Like everybody, if somebody needs something, they just simply go to the neighbor and say, I need this, and they give it to them, and they share. I mean, there are avocado trees. There are trees of all sorts of fruits. And and then people just take them. You don't have to buy them. You just pick them up. And there is it's something like like what happens in everyday life. I mean, you do very little in the way. Of course, you cannot get completely out of the change economy because the world outside moves by the change. But you try it as much as we can to do everything which has to do with taking advantage, for instance, of the climate, of the sun, of the water. We collect the water that comes from the rain. Now we are about to get solar electricity, so it means that we are going to get the electricity from the sun, so we won't have to be paying lots of bills, and that is part of the things that we do, and basically I mean, that is the way that the eco-village more or less moves.
Thanks, Angela. Peggy, I see your hand up. Would you unmute, please?
Yes. So I'm here. I'm from the Caribbean. I am in Barbados at the moment. I travel to Canada a lot. I have been, I've known about Jen's work and have been inspired by it for many, many years. So I really like Susie's question, because at this stage of my life, I'm 88, I'm not mobile, I can't go out to the protests anymore. I can't, there's, you know, I've been an activist all my life, but at this stage, what can I do? And I just wanted to say that 3 things. First of all, as Jen said, the first thing for me is to understand the gift economy, and that it permeates everywhere. It is everywhere. It is everywhere. This giving and taking care of people, taking care of the planet, taking care of yourself, it exists everywhere. But it, as Jen said, it's completely invisible and it's ignored. And because it's ignored, it's really exploited. So that's the first thing. The second thing, I think, and I feel really strongly about this second thing, you have to understand the big picture. You have to understand why it is that what is happening today is happening today. The inequality and the injustice, the violence, the violation of people, the violation of the planet, the whole climate crisis didn't just come out of the blue. It has an origin. The greed, the selfishness, all of those are completely counter to the gift economy. As Angela Meyer says, these are expressions of the exchange economy. But I want to introduce 2 words that I think are important to understand the big picture. You have to understand the connection between capitalism and patriarchy. Those 2 words, capitalism and patriarchy, how they are connected, how they help to reinforce each other and to reinforce this whole paradigm of violence and violation and greed and injustice, domination, control in the interest of a small group of people. You have to understand that is a big picture. That is the world we live in. That's the world that exploits the gift economy. And that is why I think the gift economy is so important to keep talking about it and reminding people about it, because it, in fact, it's the only thing that counters the other bad stuff. It's the only thing that counters it. So for somebody who is no longer active, who doesn't have a lot of mobility, I can still contribute to this vision that Jen has brought of the maternal gift economy. I can contribute to that vision by recognizing it, first of all, that it's everywhere, drawing that to people's attention, it's everywhere. Secondly, that it's really exploited by, you know, what the reality of today. And that the 2 things that work together to do that exploitation is capitalism and patriarchy. And to do whatever I can in my immediate world, the way I treat each other, treat myself, the way I treat people around me, and the way I treat the space, the physical environment in which I live, I can still attest to those values of the gift economy. That's what I wanted to say at this stage.
Wonderful.
It's the only hope. It's really the only hope.
Thank you very much, Peggy. You addressed it on many, many levels. Frieda, did you have a response that you wanted to offer of some everyday, how you can model the gift economy and ideas of what people can do? Okay, unmute, my friend.
All right. So I'm Frieda Werden, originally from the US, living in Canada, and I'm a radio producer with a long-running series about women in the world. And I know Jen initially through her interest in communication and her support of women's communications. And I want to say that one of the things that you can do every day that's really important is listening. People are so busy, they're so busy talking, they're so busy, and they're not listening to each other. And not being listened to is a huge deficit in our societies today. So really listening and not just pretending to listen is a huge gift. And then responding and the things that you learn from listening, you can share with other people and make them feel included. So anyway, that is my primary idea for something that can be done anytime.
Thank you so much, Frieda. Maria Suarez, you have something that you'd like to offer to this question from Susie. Please unmute, my friend. There you go.
Yeah, good morning. My name is Maria Suarez. I'm originally from Puerto Rico. My DNA traveled the world round before I was born. I have traveled the red world round after I was born in my work. I presently live in Costa Rica, in pristine Caribbean of Costa Rica, on a nice Saturday morning where all of the families are out enjoying, and we have a lionfish tournament that I'm not being a part of until I finish with you the next 2 hours. But you can see in the way back, the fisher people going out in the boat fishing for the lionfish. I'm very happy to be with you. And the reason why I'm showing you this is because I would like to highlight, I am also a journalist, an activist, a diver, a swimmer, and I'm currently working in an archaeological project of underwater archaeology that is searching for the identity of sunken ships here in Costa Rica. The reason why I showed you around what surrounds me today is because I would like to highlight to what everybody else has said. I would like to highlight that the reason why I am 75 and I have been an activist all my life, and I have Peggy and Jen and everybody who you have listened to be my mentors of as I age and cannot do the intense activism that I do today. They are my mentors, but not only because they continue being active, but because one thing that I have learned in approaching the understanding of the gift economy is that it has allowed me to look back in my life, who are the people that I have learned from the most valuable lessons in life to help me go through a very active and very rich life in every moment of it. And it has really been the people when I was growing up that looked like they did the less work, because it was my grandmother who was raising up us all the time with all the values that the clan left us. It was the fisher people that I grew up with in a fisher people's folk town, where when people came back from fishing, the way they would share the fish with the community, with others who weren't able to go fishing or whatever. It was the way in which my mother, as a teacher of science and mother, showed us that the economy of nature was a gift economy. That when we didn't have anything to eat, she would send all of us 6 out to the ocean and say, bring what you can and we will make a soup. And those things were so simple, but it showed that the bounty of nature is based on the fact that nature gives and nature takes without any consideration of any kind of exchange. But it is the gifts of nature. And I saw them in nature, and I saw them in the women, and I saw them in men, also in my father. But the women have a special way of understanding it, because as Genevieve has put it very clearly in her works about the maternal gift economy, stemming from the ways of nature, but bringing it to the level of how it is that the females of the human species are the ones who carried it through in the beginning of each of our lives. And if we don't acknowledge it and recognize it, we tend to think that that is a thing of the past, that is a thing that has no value, and yet it is what has made us be who we are today. That's all I would like to say now. And really, that what I meant by the mentors is that I know that as I age, there will be a time when I will not be able to be so active the way I am active now, but will be able to be active in the way that I am a testimony, interacting with a community and a generation that needs to understand and see the values that are behind these other ways and not the hegemonic one. And that is what we what we can be until the day we die and further beyond. Thank you.
Thanks, Maria. Okay, I'm gonna close this question out with Jen making an additional comment, and then Susie, your second question, can I call on Amber and then come back to you? Perfect. So Genevieve, would you unmute if you wanted to close out this part, this question with some more of your wisdom and comments? That would be great.
I just wanted to respond to Peggy and Angela, who talked about the exploitation of patriarchy and capitalism, and how exchange and gift work in different ways. And in fact, what I just wanted to say is that the whole patriarchal capitalist system is being nurtured by the gift economy. That is, that are transforming gifts into profit. And that is how capitalism works. And if we can see that, as in surplus labor, which is that labor that is not paid for in the salary, the extra labor time that goes into the capitalist pocket, the women's free work in the home, what they call nature services, all of those are gifts that the society is giving to patriarchal capitalism, to the market, and that's how it works. And if we can see that connection, then we know what's wrong with the system, and we can eventually liberate the gift economy from the exchange economy and let it be the guiding way of doing things instead of the exchange quid pro quo.
Thanks, Jen. I'm going to have a little PSA here. For those of you who are using the chat, please remember, unless you want to send the message to someone directly, you need to make sure, if you want the whole group to see it, in the to field that it says everyone, and then everyone will be able to see your.
No,
your
Letitia, you've changed the setting and we cannot send to everyone. That's why I sent to everyone, but it went to you because I can.
Oh,
Yeah.
Sorry,
okay.
I've just fixed that. You should be good to go now.
Okay, Diane is our tech person, and she took care of that. So thanks, Diane. All right, Amber, you have a question. Your hand is up. Please unmute. And everyone else who's not speaking right now, would you please make sure you're muted? Welcome, Amber.
Thank you. First, I just want to say that the kind of encountering this theory has just been really grounding for me, because I've had just this sense of a lot of things that when you're kind of in the world as it is, people will convince you that things are unrelated or that kind of these ideas are all over the place. And so when I came in contact with kind of this framework and this way of thinking and understanding the interconnectivity of all of these issues, it's just been, very grounding for me. And at the same time, when I'm in spaces like this or kind of having these conversations, there's always this elephant in the room of the money, the system, the way that it works. And I always feel like I'm kind of missing something because we're kind of talking around it, or we're talking about the alternative, but we have this force or this agreement or this system or this way that we are doing things And I can never figure out what do we do with that, or how do we in a very practical way move into practice of this sense or this idea. And so I'm just kind of curious if people can talk about kind of psychologically, emotionally, and then also very practically what the process of untangling has been like for you. Because, like, for example, if people are kind of living in the gift, how are folks earning money, or have folks been able to organize their lives so that they are living in housing setups that don't need to be paid for, or where people are kind of contributing work together and earning money and then like paying for all of the housing together, or people are growing food. So I'm just kind of wondering if anybody can share in like really specifics, like practicals, like how are you situating yourself in the reality of needing money for certain things, and then but then also really embracing and existing as part of the gift.
Thanks, Amber. So you're looking for practical ways and processes in the way that people have been able to sort of extract their mindset and how they're operating in their everyday practical life. Is that what I understand your question to sort of generally be about?
Yeah, just as much as, I mean, I know that's like a lot to ask, but just, if people are like, well, I'm doing work about gift economy and I'm able to get paid speaking about this, and that feels okay for me. Or if people are like, well, I'm a teacher, I do, like I'm doing something that doesn't feel like an evil thing to do, and I don't mind earning money to do that. Or if people have tried to find ways to not need to earn money, I'm just like very curious about that part of this, because I'm just always like, how like that part.
Yeah. Okay, gotcha. All right. Jen, would you like to speak to that directly right now? You want to start us off, or do you want me to ask someone else that question? Because I think that perhaps one of the things as a project, I mean, I could speak to that personally, and I would, okay, Jen is saying yes, so I will. So I would say, Amber, one of the things that is really critical is the question that Susie asked when we started. The maternal gift economy isn't a fantasy. It's not a fanciful place to live. We acknowledge that we're at this place where two major paradigms, there are many, but the major paradigms that are really affecting the economic status in our world is, as we see it, is the maternal gift economy and capitalism, the market economy. And I'll just tell you one little tiny thing that is a major shift, that one of the gifts is money in this and in the way that we live right now. So instead of, in my own personal life, instead of me posing how I get paid for a service or my goods, I actually set up a situation where I have a long conversation with someone about the gift economy if they don't know what it is. And then I explain how I choose to live. And then we talk about what what other people charge, quote unquote, and they charge that because it's considered a living wage. But I live by the gift, so that's just a measure. And everyone knows what it costs for rent and food, etc. And then I let people decide what they gift. That's how I do it in one way. So whatever is paid to me, even though somebody might see it from their paradigm as a marketing or the exchange economy, I don't see it as an exchange. I receive it as a gift. And I explain to them why it is a gift to me. So that's the biggest difference, is that we have to orient from within the paradigm of the maternal gift economy in order to live the gift. It is very, very difficult. I had a corporate job in 1996 as a project manager in a tech company that I was the project manager for a project for Sony Electronics USA, all 8 divisions. And I walked away to nothing. I don't recommend it. You know, I don't recommend doing that. But I had, for many reasons for myself, I couldn't tolerate the market economy values and the exchange values, which the number one thing I think that's rooted in it is degrees of lying. So you try to get people to buy something that they don't really need. And then you try to get people to do it in a way that then you have to be very sort of violently coercive to get other people to try to produce whatever it is that you've promised that really couldn't be done. I mean, that's why I had to leave. You know, I could no longer tolerate that. But again, it's really, you cannot, I think the two things that are involved are the internal and the external operating systems. But for me, when I think about what my values are, no matter how I'm living in the exchange economy or the maternal gift economy, I always operate from the maternal gift economy values. And then there isn't, I don't compromise. Does that make sense?
It does. It makes a lot of sense. And I think just, the community of this is really what I'm feeling, the value and the power, because in what you're saying feels very familiar to me. And I've been experimenting and practicing and really kind of fighting for what you're describing in my own life, and just getting a lot of pushback. And I think just hearing you speak and being here, a lot of this is about kind of the resilience building and really kind of understanding that, this isn't like a fantastical, wild, made up thing that doesn't make sense. It's like the rest of this doesn't make sense, and kind of being able to really stand your ground, and keep experimenting and keep practicing. And I'll say sacrificing, it's hard work. And when you have medical conditions, or you have other things that make it a little bit difficult to take the kinds of risks that I understood you describing about walking away from a job, or having those kinds of that semblance of security in place that a job will kind of convince you that it's giving to you. It just is, it's a very interesting kind of mathematics of like, what can I risk and what can I sacrifice? And so, thank you. It makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And I just want to say one little tiny thing. In the maternal gift economy, words are so important. And the way that I frame the word sacrifice is that a sacrifice is something I'm still attached to. It's not because I'm a martyr. It's because I'm still a little bit attached, and I know it's going to be painful to make that shift. So, but it's a choice. It's a conscious choice I'm making to actually let that go. So when I frame it in that way, then I don't feel like I'm losing out, I'm missing out. I'm actually standing at the core and center of my values and the way I want to see a shared future, if that helps. Okay. So that helps me have a little bit of courage and clarity about my choosing. All right. And Jen, now I'm sure you have things to say.
Thank you, Letitia. That's great. Well, I think we have to realize that the problems are huge, that the earth now has, is it 8.5 billion people on it? And a paradigm shift has to be for all of those people. But we have to get there somehow. And it is really a question of thinking. And so as whatever we can do in the question of thinking differently and spreading different ideas, I think is already giving the kind of gifts that we need to give in order to heal the situation and bring forward a general gift economy. It's not just living it personally, although that is great, but it's also trying to shift the paradigm mentally.
Yes, one of my favorite things that Jen always says is you can't do the gift economy alone. So it's a collective effort. And we do have some people who have who are in communities right now that are experiments. And I wondered, I see Bob, I don't know how active you are in NGL or in Mickey's group, but you've been writing about it in the chat. Do you feel comfortable to speak a little bit more about that? You did actually put a link in there. And if you would like to say something out loud, yes, please unmute.
I think at this point, I'd like to encourage people to follow the link. NGL is has so many moving parts that it's hard to say something, you know, and even a lot of words to make it clear what's going on there. But the idea, the words like experiments and systems are important parts of what holds NGL together.
Thank you, Bob. I will make another little PSA. The maternal gift economy, a few of us in the network will be speaking with a few of the women from the NGL group. We're going to be doing something with the Schumacher Institute on November the 14th, which our panel is entitled "Small is Not Enough." So I'm sure that you'll be seeing an announcement about that panel in the future days, but you'll get an idea of when we're speaking together as a group. You'll see our similarities and differences, but the common thread in our communities that overlap is the maternal gift economy as we see it. So let me just check in. DL, did you want to speak about NGL a little bit? Is that what?
No, I have a question, but I first wanted to direct your attention to a good question about systemic feminist gift economy in the chat.
Okay, I'm going to get back. I'll get back to that, but let me check in with Susie because I told her I'd get back to her and then I'll come back to you. Okay, so Susie, did you want to ask your second question?
Thanks so much. I do see other hands raised.
Okay. Do you want to yield right now and then come back if there's more time for you?
That would be great. Thank you.
Perfect. So, DL, was that your question? Was just to point back, was just to give me direction to look at the chat, or did you have a personal question?
That is it's Martha's question that I'm interested in hearing what you all have to say. but my question is a somewhat personal dilemma with gift economy. And that is that I grew up with a mother who loved a bargain, loved a good deal. And I am getting better at separating when I can take advantage of a good deal and when I am living in the gift. I do feel like I still kind of stay on the cheap end when I am gifting, because I have a really hard time letting go of my thriftiness and my, because I live very frugally, and it's hard for me to open up my heart and pocketbook and gift what I could gift, if you're really going by your ability and what you feel the experience is worth. And I use what I gift to the nonviolent global liberation community as an example, but I'm just wondering if anybody has experience with how to handle their own reticence to let the abundance flow.
Okay. Jen, did you want to talk about unilateral? Well, that's, I think, a key point. That's a difference between a good deal.
In answering, I'm not sure exactly which question I'm answering with that, but yeah, I think we need to look at the mothering as unilateral giving. That is, you're not giving in order to get back, you're giving in order to satisfy a need. And that's what mothers do, and they have to do that because babies can't give them back something in exchange. And if the baby's needs are not satisfied, they die. So we all have that at the basis of our lives. That is our fundamental paradigm of existence. And then the exchange economy comes in and takes over that and denies that that's the way to go and exploits it by taking free gifts whenever they're given, making the people give gifts to the exchangers. So that is that's what's wrong with society now. And how we get around that is to recognize what's going on. And I mean, when you say your mother was into bargaining, women are just as much into this exchange economy as men are. And so they don't, beyond the infancy, the model gets not so clear anymore. And so we don't realize that that is the basis of our humanity. So I'm not sure if I can really answer right now because but let me go on, let somebody else go on from there.
All right. Angela D., did you have some input to this quandary here? Angela D. Yeah.
Yes, I think the problem is that we live in very individualistic societies in which everybody is alone with some problems. I mean, so I need this, I live in a very frugal way. I have to earn some money because otherwise how do I live? So basically, I think what one has to do is one has to try to live in communities somehow that live or try to live by the gift economy. And that means where you can, whatever you need is, I mean, you can, I mean, for instance, if you are in an eco village, you have, sorry. If you are in an eco village where you can probably pick up the fruits that you plant trees and then the trees give fruits, so you can pick up the fruits. You know what your neighbor needs, so you can you care for each other. So you are living you're trying to live in the gift economy. Obviously, once you go out I mean, you have to create a big family of many people, and that family has to be by the gift economy. You live as an individual, all on your own with your own problems. It's very difficult for you to get to the gift economy in a society which basically is based only on exchange, and what nobody cares about anybody, whatever needs they are, or how do you actually satisfy the needs of other people.
Thanks, Angela D. Frieda, did you have a comment to this question?
Yes. I just wanted to say that in terms of bargaining and so forth, I mean, the life in the gift economy is full of decisions that are difficult. I mean, if you're bargaining with somebody that you know is going to be harmed by your making such a tight bargain, then you can't, you know, as a gift giver person, you need to think about what their need is and not screw them to the ground, you know, as it would be possible because of the inequality in your resources. But there are other situations where, you know, well, if you're bargaining with a corporation, then yeah, shoot your best shot. I mean, I'm in a situation now where I have enough, but I have friends who, or people that I'm associated with, who don't have enough, and trying to figure out what I can give to them without making myself in a situation where I can't give anymore. I mean, it is full of tough decisions, and there's no way around that. But thinking of the other person and comparing your situations and thinking about what you can do is just part of it.
Thanks, Frieda. Angela M., did you have a comment to this also?
Yeah, I one of the things I find walking in a world that is exchange world, that's what we're constrained by, and that's what we live with, those bounds, to the point where we don't even actually notice them a lot. I find it's really interesting where you can see gift in that. And one of the, like, I remember when when you travel with a valuable exchange currency for exchange in countries where the money is much less worth, it's very awkward to be bargaining in contexts where that's the norm. And it's impossible not to bargain, because if you don't, it's total exploitation of the white foreigner. And you don't want to, you know, you don't want to be the end of that. But even if it's nothing, even if it's like $20 and it should be $2, but you know what? You're rich enough. I'm not, but if you go in a big hotel, what's the difference? That destroys the relationship somehow, because we're not in the same culture. And I remember when I realized that bargaining is something we've prohibited here, because it's all institutionalized. It's not relationship anymore. So in the people who have something to sell are not in charge of the price, or it's not a relationship. And why do people in countries where bargaining is the norm, why are they not feeling bad about themselves for trying to push the price down? It's because it's expected, and it's a relationship that's still going. And it's only when you're outside that it becomes, I'm exploited, and am I going to get away with this? And look what's happening to me, because we don't have those relationships anymore. And I'm not saying we should get to bargaining instead of gift. I'm not advocating it. I'm saying there's gift involved in so many things. And I remember here watching a documentary about the steel strike here in Ontario that was very, very important. And it was quite a few decades ago. So the steel workers were on strike against INCO, International Metal Company, and the women, beginnings of feminism, had formed a women's auxiliary, and they were getting money and doing support stuff. But unlike previous strikes, they wanted to have control of their resources and decide what they would do with the strike support that they had raised. And the big struggle with the men was that what the women were doing wasn't revolutionary. It wasn't along the lines of what should be done. And there's a paradigmatic struggle there. The women get defined as problem for the revolution, right? Backward in many, many ways. And I think, I live downtown here in Toronto, and my bike's I'm always needing help with my bike one way or another. The mirror's not an angle. I don't know how to do something. And there are lots of small bike shops here, and I can get help there. And I don't want to take it. I don't want to feel that, but I don't offer money at first. Every time these bike tech people do it for me and say, no, it's okay, it's okay. So what I say is, I thank you. I want to give you a gift now. And they know exactly what I mean. And we've made a human connection, and we haven't destroyed it. And I think that's one thing. If you can see the gift and you can recognize the connections, in itself, it's fabulous. You know, it makes for a better day, because I've received a gift, they've given a gift, and that's nice, you know, and we can see where it's interrupted. So it's not like you can completely go off the grid, or you don't ever have to engage with money, but to see what it's doing to the relationships can help move in this world, you know, because you can find those relationships so many places. So
thanks, Angela M. We do hope that one day that we will shift completely to the maternal gift economy, and money is a non-issue. But until then, these are really great, you know, everyday solutions. Dido, do you have a question for us?
Well, it's partly a question and partly a response to what people have said before, I think. I'll just say about me that I lived in eco-villages for many years. I'm not living there now, but I'm actually a meditation teacher in the Tibetan tradition. So mainly my work in this paradigm is to help people shift internally through meditation, like developing love and generosity and things. So I have an angle, a sort of inner growth angle to this. But what's been happening in New Zealand is we had a big, don't know if you know, there was a big flood disaster, climate disaster here earlier this year. And it was just up the road from me, more or less. And I was watching what was happening in the disaster, because I think about climate change all the time. How are we going to get this paradigm happening to sort of be able to live in the future of climate change and to stop it getting worse and all these things? That's my big question. So here's a disaster right next door, and everybody's being rescued off their roofs. And what I noticed, I mean, they say this about every kind of disaster like this, that not everybody, but many people, they were all helping each other. They were all bringing together the community to get food for everybody, make sure everybody had drinking water and all these things. The gift economy and the community that surrounds that were just naturally coming in those circumstances. And then I've been watching the news continuously after that. How has this played out afterwards? And of course, as soon as the crisis is over, because people didn't know what they were doing, they didn't know that they were changing into this wonderful paradigm that we need for the future. So, you know, I wanted to go in and wave a little map at them and say, you know, keep doing this, don't stop, because this is what we need. But of course, I couldn't do that. So they stopped, you know. now they're all saying, well, I want to go back to the life I had, and why aren't you fixing up my house for me, government? Like they've forgotten how wonderful it was when they were all helping each other. And it seems to me and there was one community that was different from that, who were all Maori, and they said, well, we have communities set up already, so we're doing well. So you could see that they provided a contrast there, and they've probably still got community going, but the people who are not Indigenous, we've lost that. So my question is kind of, how can we, considering that this is the way of the future, I'm absolutely convinced of this whole matriarchal paradigm, if you like, how do we help people to have the understanding of what they're doing, so that every time, because I think what's going to happen is there's going to be so many disasters that we'll be forced into this paradigm. But if we don't know that we're being forced into it, people are going to just want to go back to their old ways and not, resist it. Do you know what I'm saying? So how could we help people to understand, when you're forced into it, this is the right direction? You see what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. Okay, that's my question. And it's also a bit of an answer to the lady with the big top knot on top too.
Amber, that's Amber. Yes.
Amber, yeah.
Yes. Jen, do you have any bits of wisdom for that? I think I do know that Peggy has talked a little bit about that when she talked about the local things that had gone on in her community during the pandemic. But Genevieve, yes.
Yeah, it's almost as if the universe were forcing us into the gift economy through all of this disaster that's happening. Many years ago, maybe 40, 50 more years ago, I had this sort of vision that was a spaceship landed, and all the people went to see the people coming off the spaceship, and the person came out of the spaceship, and they were talking about the universe, and then they said, doesn't anybody here talk about or practice the gift economy? And I was just there, just one person, and I tried to raise my hand and say, yeah, I do, but it was not working. And the space person said, the whole universe works that way. All the rest of us work that way. And so in a way, it gets you the idea that we've just gone off course with the market, with the exchange economy, with capitalism and patriarchy. And we didn't know that. It somehow, it wasn't we didn't do it on purpose. It just happened that we got in the wrong framework, and that we could go back to it and get to the original way. I mean, I would hate to see the environment crash as it is crashing already, and that we had to learn our lesson that way. And it's not really learning a lesson. It's that we would need to get back on course. But how many people would have to die? How many, how much of nature would have to go? And we need to be able to do something ahead of time so yes. that doesn't happen.
Absolutely.
And so we have to realize how deep the change has to be. And somebody was talking about the care economy. Well, that is a step in the right direction within the framework of capitalism. It's not outside of capitalism. It doesn't take a different route and a different way of departure and understanding. So, what I do is keep waving my hand about the gift economy, and I think that we all can understand it profoundly and see what is profoundly wrong with the whole market and capitalism and exchange and patriarchy and propose the alternative in our lives and in our thinking and conversations and so on.
Thanks, Jen. Peggy, did you have your hand up for a moment?
Yes, I was just wanting to agree that I've talked about how during the pandemic people changed, but in the Caribbean every year we have a hurricane season, and every year if there's a hurricane or a flood or a drought, people do get together and help each other. And you're right, at the end of that they just want to get back to their lives, but there have been attempts to say, why don't we continue living this way? I want to go to one of the questions in the chat to do with the demands of some feminist-inspired attempts to get wages for housework or the care economy. And I just want to say that there are many of these initiatives. Some of them are more activist oriented. So there's a work that's been going on for years called Wages for Housework, a Wages for Housework campaign that has been going on for many years and gets a lot of attention every now and then. That's one of them. The other thing has been, yes, a lot of feminist economists are talking about the care economy. Another thing is how to get policies, create policies that would recognize the value of women's work by having policies about daycare, about elder care. But Jen is right, all of these are within the paradigm of capitalism and exchange. And it may be that while we're waiting for the breakthrough that we all recognize and choose to continue living that way, the way in which Indigenous people understand and have lived for generations. These initiatives are steps in the right direction, and they need to be supported. So it's not as if, because there are efforts within capitalism to make life possible for some people, or less arduous or painful for some people. So I tend to recognize the intention, even while acknowledging that it doesn't go far enough.
Thanks, Peggy. For all of you out there listening, I'm going to ask you to put a pin in this question. I'll have Liliana read the full question or the position that Marta actually wrote in the chat so that we can have a little discussion on that. But I wanted to see if if Maria and Frank were still responding to the previous question that had to do with, responding during a crisis where people are operating from the gift, and then when the crisis is over, that they revert back. Maria, do you have and Frank, is your comment a different comment, or is it something that has to do with this?
We have had in Germany the same problem. We had a flood and the people helped together, but now it's finished and they behave like before. I have some other points, so perhaps you can put me at the...
Yes, I'm adding you in the line, Frank, but thank you for that comment. Okay, Maria.
Yes, I just want to make the statement that I agree with everybody, and everybody who talks knows that this is what happens in times of crisis, that the best of the best in us comes out, and the best in us is a gift economy. It's a way of giving that responds to very dire needs instead of calculations about what I'm going to get from it or if I'm going to get anything about it from it. So my approach has, because I also live like that, like Peggy, you know, I live in the Caribbean. We have those crises. These are not new to climate change. We have had them forever and they have getting worse. But not only those, but the situations that I have had to live in the midst of war, in the earthquake in Haiti. And it's time after time we see the same thing, and we all see it, and we all do it, no matter what the context is. So I believe that it must be a pattern of our most primitive ways of being in nature, that when things get really bad, we remember who we are and how we come out of it, building community and giving to each other the best that we can in us. So what I do is that I am constantly reminding myself, my community and people, that we are in crisis, and this crisis is not going to be over until we give the best of us and in relationship to the rest of nature. And so, because I do know, and I have been there, that in the crisis situation, whether it's very personal about cancer or illness or whatever, or collective about those things that happen naturally and also politically in war, that the best comes out in us. So we have to be we have to remember, and as Peggy said, we have to look at the big picture, because we are in crisis all the time, because it's a crisis of our presence in this planet that we have ruined for ourselves and for everybody else. And we can make the 360 degree change like we do partially, and we forget when we forget that we are in crisis. We are in crisis, always. And if we remember that, we will bring out the best in us, individually, collectively, but we have to have the framework that capitalism and patriarchy are killing us, and are killing us to be able to be in this planet, and are ruining the planet for a lot of species.
Thanks, Maria. I would just like to point out, we had a book launch for the Evolved Nest. It was a book that Darsha Navarez and Gay Bradshaw co-authored. And one of the things that Kay Bradshaw brought out was that in the last decade or so, or for many years now, that the notion that the survival of the fittest, this scarcity notion, has been debunked by science. That really what is needed, and you can watch the recording on our website, maternalgifteconomymovement.org. And she states that what was actually seen and documented over and over again is that we exist because of cooperation. It's that relationship that Angela M. brought up. So part of the shifting of the paradigm is recognizing at this fundamental level, the crisis sort of, creates this crack, and our natural tendencies begin to rise up. Jen talks about the overlay of patriarchy and the overlay of the exchange economy, and the best of us rises up. So I think that's an important factor to note, that it really is about our relationship to one another, and the fact that our cooperating together is the reason that we still exist as Homo donans today. All right. Angela D., did you have a comment to this particular part, or are you responding to the question that Marta had brought up? Because if it's to this one, that's great. And I'll let you go, but I was going to have Liliana read the question out loud so that everybody could have that question fresh in their mind.
Okay, let's hear then the question so we have it in mind.
Okay, Liliana, would you please unmute and grace us with your voice?
Yeah, Marta Quintero asked, I would like to know, please, what you think about some feminists want that the government pay for the women's work doing at home, taking care of children and disabled and older people.
Okay. And if you can remember in your short-term memory, the comments that Peggy brought forward, and then Angela D., did you want to respond to that?
Sorry. Basically the crisis of the pandemic was made people have to go back and live by the gift economy because there were people who really and truly didn't have food and couldn't eat. So what happened especially in developing countries was that people would put a red cloth and then people would come and help those people. Obviously, if you are living, in very, I come again, in very individualistic societies in which you don't know your neighbors, in which nobody knows each other, in which people respect their privacy in such a way that they have to live and compete with each other to see who actually has more and who spends more money and who buys more. So that makes it very difficult to have anything to do with the gift economy. Obviously, for instance, the government pays, when the government gives money to women for caring, we are back in the exchange economy anyway. Yeah, because women by nature, they do the caring without never having to be paid for it. But I go back to my idea that if you want to practice the gift economy, you should try to live in communities where this is possible. Or if you live, for instance, in a building or in a condo, try to practice the gift economy within your neighbors, because your neighbors are the people that probably will need more and would be happier to share with you the gift economy rather than. And again, you have to live in community. You have to start to practice the gift economy inside communities.
Thanks, Angela D. Jen, did you have a question? Any comments or response to Martha's question or comment about women's paid work?
Well, the problem is you have to change the whole society in order to make that right. And if you just change a part of the society, you may not be able to change the whole. That's what I'm thinking.
That's right. Peggy did point that out. Part of what she said was, this money paid for work in the home is still part of the same exchange economy.
Yeah, and it keeps you inside the market. But and it validates the market. That's the thing too.
Well, it's very unfortunate that is the case. But for the individual women involved and for the families involved, it's a big thing to get some relief. So I'm not, it's not the gift economy, but it is at least it's recognizing the contribution that women make, taking care of the whole society in a sense. And that is the work that is used and exploited to increase profits and everything else. So if governments, I would be advocating, if I were active today, I would be advocating wages for housework, provide, I would challenge the governments to provide some facility. And it's not just money, it is just, you could provide services. You could have daycare services. You could have tax breaks. You could have centers for elder care. You could have playgrounds for children. You could have facilities for children when, after school. You know, there are a number of ways that governments can recognize. I simply would like the recognition of the contribution that women are making. And that recognition, even though it is still within capitalism, I insist makes a huge difference to the people that receive those benefits. Enormous. It's the difference between being able to feed your children and not being able to feed your children, having a roof over your head or not. So, I mean, there's something called socialism, right? We don't talk about socialism anymore. But there's another, somebody asked a question about a post-capitalist society. Yes, I can imagine a society in which society, through the governments, takes care of the needs of people, and where the gift economy flourishes, because we're all doing that work, but it's recognized and the facilities are there that allow us to do those things. So I'm not a purist when it comes to that. Jen knows that. I want to see some policies. I want to see some progressive policies. I want to be, I'm happy that the feminist economists are trying to recognize the value of that work and to think about some policies that could be introduced that would help people. In the meantime, even as you try to change the entire system, and I agree with that you would have to change the entire system, but until you can change the entire system, what can we do to make it possible for people to live?
Thanks, Peggy. Frieda, are you responding to this topic, and then we'll close it out with Jen?
Yeah, well, Peggy said some of what I wanted to say, but wages for housework, whatever problems they may have as an organization internally and so forth, their campaigns have made a difference in getting the recognition of women's work. We're seeing more and more. I mean, they put the idea of women's work, if you had to pay for all those services, they put it into the GDP framework. And so it made it visible within that system. So that's really important. And then just thinking about the Clinton era thing that happened in the US, where he got a law passed that said that, oh, you couldn't get money to support yourself and your kids unless the women also went out to work at a job, which means that that was total devaluation of the work that was done in the home and conflicted with the ability to do that work in the home. So actually, I've got a show that's in the works right now about this, a radio show about this situation, some aspects of this situation. But I know that there were debates within communist groups or related groups about whether to try to get incremental changes or to wait for everything to collapse and then the communist revolution would occur. And I agree with Peggy that that too many people will suffer waiting for that, and that if we visibilize the situation, then that gives more grounds for further negotiations. And yeah, that's all I want to say.
Thanks, Frieda. Jen.
Yeah, so I think that we really have to raise consciousness about how the system itself is wrong and needs to be basically changed. So if we can have the idea of a paradigm shift in our minds, then it's great to be able to do these incremental, these changes that actually help people in the moment. But if you look at the idea of charity, for example, you know, people have been doing charity for centuries and nothing has changed. In fact, things get worse. I've been living in Rome. I would drive by an ancient church where people were standing in line waiting for breakfast. And I thought, well, gosh, that line has been there for centuries. And it has. I mean, nothing has changed. Nothing changes, even if charity is great, even if it's a practice, the individual practice of the gift economy has always been stymied and not allowed to really change the system. And so what we need to do is have the paradigm of the gift economy in mind in order to work towards that, everybody. And then charity can have a purpose that is general for a general shift towards charity, towards gifting.
Towards gifting. Wonderful. Thanks, Jen. All right. I'm going to check back in with Frank. Did you have a question that you wanted to pose? You shared a comment, but is there a question that you had? And then I'm going to go back to Susie.
I would like to tell you about my approach to gift economy and would like to know your comments. I think gift economy from the aim, from the goal, it's all right, but it's the end of a long way. And there are several steps before we can reach gift economy. And I'm trying together with a woman a different approach. I also have written a mail to Jen, but never got an answer. So I tried to take part on this conference.
Oh, okay.
I didn't
Frank.
get your email.
Yeah,
Send
Frank.
it again.
Yeah, send it again. Or Diane, would you put in maternal economy?
A question to Jen. I sent it to Genvo at AOL.
That's not my address. That's not my address anymore. It's Gmail, gmail.com.
Ah, yeah. Oh. But can you put it in the chat, your email?
Okay.
And Frank, you can also send CC the maternal gift economy at gmail.com, and we'll make sure either one of those, we'll make sure Jen gets a copy of that, and then she can respond effectively to your thoughts. That would be great.
Okay.
And I put it there.
And any of you, same thing, please feel free to send us your questions and your comments, your ideas at maternalgifteconomy@gmail.com, and we will make sure that it gets to the place that it needs to get to, and we'll respond to whatever your inquiry or comment is. So thank you for that. All right. Susie, did you have a second question that you wanted to pose? If you're still here in the room. Oh, I see you. And if not, that's okay. Liliana, do you have a question that you'd like to pose? And maybe Susie will come back on.
I don't have a question, but I want to read a comment by Amber.
Okay.
Amber Michael, and she says, the internal transformation is so critical. It takes so much to overcome the trauma of exploitation and to not make choices.
I'm having some technical problems.
Okay, Susie, hold on one second. Let Liliana finish the comment.
Okay, I'm going to start over.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
From Amber Michael, the internal transformation is so critical. It takes so much to overcome the trauma of exploitation and to not make choices based on fear of being violated. And we were talking about how to make the change into the gift economy paradigm inside of us. And she made that comment. You can add whatever you want to this, Amber, but I thought it was very interesting.
Thank you, Liliana. And thank you, Amber, for that comment. Does anybody on the panel have anything to add to that or respond to Amber's comment? It is quite challenging, no doubt. Amber, we're really glad you're with us today. So you're not alone in this. You have friends. All right. Susie, are you ready?
Yes, thank you so much for your patience with me. So I really appreciate all the comments and all the conversation today. And it even more so illuminates the challenge to which my other question addresses. So I come from places of privilege, and I have a lot of experience in circles of privilege where there's no acknowledgement of the toxicity of the predatory, violating nature of the capitalist, patriarchal exchange values. And then trying to have those conversations and elevate the concept of the gifting model is often not well received. And I know that I'm guilty also of still being, I loved Amber's comment, of still being, mired in the ingrained habits of the exchange model. So, and especially because of the circles I find myself in and the family I find myself in, there's this tendency to feel like, well, I'm a giver and I'm always attracting takers, and then I get taken advantage of, and how do I fix that balance? And then there's the other side of it, which is also that when I'm trying to do gifting or be in the gifting model, that can be misunderstood and not land well. And I try always to name my privilege and put it out there, not as a better than thing, but as just a named thing. And I have the capacity to share. So I want to, but people who are mired in the toxicity of the existing model, it's not always received well. And so all that's underlying in my current question is this. I recently purchased 5 acres of land that I'm wanting to turn into something that does this model. I don't want to farm. I can't be there all the time. And I don't have enough trust that somebody else would come forward to manage the land when I'm not there. So I'm not planning to have animals that need feeding or crops that need care. But I want to make, I want to make the land available. Mostly I want children I love to be able to come and have time in nature that's not structured. But I also want, people who need housing to be able to come and park their tent or their RV or be in one of the guest rooms or whatever. And again, it's this dilemma of both the fear of being taken advantage of and also the fear of not being received as it's intended, because people don't understand when you're coming from the maternal gift economy model and they've never heard of it, and it doesn't matter. I find myself, it's not unlike when I try to explain patriarchy to people and they hear it as I'm being sexist towards men. They hear it as I'm being anti-male, instead of understanding that I'm trying to refer to the patriarchy as this system that harms everybody regardless of gender. And I feel like this is the flip side of that when I'm trying to help people to understand the maternal gifting model, I'm not necessarily being received well. and again, I totally own that some of that is my own internalized bullshit. Thank you.
Susie, I think Jen can actually speak directly to the challenges that you're facing, having had done it for so many years, and her journey there. And then before I ask her to unmute, I just want you to say, just make sure to reach out to our email address, Susie, and maybe we can, you know, help you find a place. And Bob put in NGL, I think, but yeah, make sure you contact us directly for communication, and you can get supported, not feel like you're a crazy person out there like Amber has had the experience.
Thank you so
We
much.
know what you...
I'm already part of it. In fact, I'm missing an NGL thing right now.
Okay, great. Yeah. Jen, please.
Yeah, well, you know, I come from a position of privilege also, and I realized a long time ago that it was wrong. The whole setup was wrong, and I've done what I could to try to change it in all kinds of ways. And I think you just have to realize what the difficulties are and do it anyway, and find your way through. And people do understand if you explain it to them. Some, right. And, you know, we used to have a place where people, a retreat center where people came, and it was a large piece of property, and we had meetings there every weekend that people had from different groups came and used the place and stuff. And so, I mean, you can do these projects. It's great, really. I remember a woman that I had a meeting one time, and a woman was saying, "Oh, I'm so happy to hear about the gift economy. I gave my house as a safe house for women, and I thought I was crazy, but I did it anyway." So it's helpful to have behind your project. It's helpful to have an idea of what it is you're doing, and if you can explain it to people, it's, you know, they understand, because they need a way out too. Everybody does. So eventually they do understand it. Some, not everybody, but yeah. So, you know, write to me and I'll tell you more if I can. Yeah.
Thanks, Jen. Judith, you have your hand up. And Mary Claire, I don't know if you want to talk about your experience at the temple after Judith and Angela, but I thought you might have some input to that. Judith.
One of the groups that I'm involved in, besides the maternal gift economy folks, is trying to set up a natural cemetery. And so I would like to, and one of the ways that we are trying to do that is looking for somebody to gift land that could then be used as a cemetery, and that would keep the land in its natural state. People would be able to go and visit it, and it would provide natural burial is one of the things that more and more people as we age would really like to have. So I just want to throw that into the mix as a possible use for gifted land.
Thanks, Judith. Mary Claire, the reason I thought you might have some input here is that Mary Claire is in residence to one of the places that Jen is still ongoing as a gift economy, the temple. And there is an orientation, I think, a conversation that often takes place there about the maternal gift economy. So she I thought she might be able to share some ways in which those conversations arise, and she's managed to do some remarkable things. So Mary Claire?
I thought you might peg me even if I didn't raise my hand, but I'm happy to. I was concerned because I've had to be a little bit in two places this morning, and so I was concerned that if I raised my hand, I may not be speaking to the fullness of everyone's offerings and questions. But that being said, I'm happy to give a little bit of input and express my gratitude first and foremost for the dialogic nature of this forum. These what you all have done in these biweekly forums going back now 51 sessions is an incredible gift of time and attention and expertise and connectivity to the cosmos, and that we can all participate together in increasingly complex ways that that really are woven from this kind of relational fabric. And to see one another like this is a real gift too. And Letitia, I know it's more to manage, and so thank you for that. And just again to mention what Letitia is pointing to is that Genevieve, 30 years ago now, founded the Temple of Goddess Spirituality dedicated to Sekhmet in Cactus Springs, Nevada, located in between the nuclear test site, the most bombed place on Earth, if you count all the above ground testing, and the Creech Air Force Base, which is headquarters to one of the biggest terrorist drone operations that our government engages in. And Genevieve founded this on a three-part sort of a tripod of the maternal gift economy, goddess, earth-based spirituality, and peace activism. And so it's a great honor that there are two of us there full-time, Reverend Aria Marie, who's not with us this morning, but we kind of tag team, and I, who are living there in full, I love that the word experiment came up a little while ago. It's a full, what I like to call a living laboratory for the wildness of the rewilding of gift culture rooted in the maternal gift economy, which one of the most precious things I think said today that I want to make a bumper sticker of is that it's everywhere. You know, it's an unveiling. So just, I won't go on, I promise, Letitia, but I had this funny thought as y'all were chatting and I was attending to something in the kitchen that, you know, apocalypse, the word apocalypse, if you go back to the Greek, etymologically, it means the unveiling, right? It's not cataclysm. I mean, it is, but it's not Armageddon the way we've thought to some dystopic. It means unveiling, revealing, apocalyptane. So if I love Genevieve, your responses here are, I know, look at her. Yeah, it's the unveiling. So, you know, the apocalypse, here we are. It's the unveiling. It's peeling back these occluding overlays of patriarchy and capitalism, of the modernity's delusion, so that we can freely sink back into the fertility and the fecundity of the maternal gift economy of planet Earth, of Earth Mother, and of all of our relations. And I do believe that we are at that critical turning point and time on our planet, a most auspicious and even if terrifying turning point, but that we are supported in this evolutionary arc to be participating together in peeling back it's like the emperor's new clothes, it's like I'm sorry folks, but the emperor of patriarchal capitalism is about to be seen as naked and wanting, and it's gonna get to be clothed with what is being reseeded here. And my last point is that I truly believe that the shift of consciousness that we are midwifing together, which is the topic of my PhD dissertation that I'm feverishly trying to finish and will be defending most auspiciously on Friday, the 13th of October. I chose that because it's a witchy day. It is about the how we welcome together the shift of consciousness, and all of this thinking that we're doing is going to get to be met by what I call scaffolding for the arrival of grace, the grace of the return to the maternal gift economy, which is a little bit about unthinking. It's like we've thought ourselves a little bit into a knot, and now we get to take all of that thinking and put it on the ritual altar of coming together for an embodied, energetic, spiritual resacralizing. So the gift of the rational is in service to the master. I don't know if any of you know Ian McGilchrist's work on the master and its emissary. All of our thinking is in service to the master, which is really the maternal matrix, the intuitive, the relational, the whole making. So, oh, I'm so sorry, Letitia. I didn't mean to go off in so many different directions, but we are a living laboratory there, and it's a lot of fun.
Thanks, Mary Claire. Susie, I wanted really specifically to introduce you, and Mary Claire, you didn't go off. Let's just say you've said that, and Jen said, the maternal, and others have said, the maternal gift economy is everywhere. So there isn't a single thing that you could have talked about that didn't include the gift. So thank you for feeling yourself welcome to do that. Susie, I wanted you to know Mary Claire specifically because Mary Claire and Aria, because they're living where they're living, are having to speak to people directly in a human way about the maternal gift economy as they come through there. So they're having those conversations, and they would be people who would be able to, speak to you about that as you transition your land in the way that you would like. So I wanted to make that connection directly. And then Angela D also has an experiment, and Angela, can you unmute?
Yes. Susie, well, first of all, I must say that I live in Colombia. I don't live in the United States, and Colombia is one of the most unequal places in the world between those who have and those who don't have. And basically, well, I met Jen at the beginning of this century, and there were women who obviously were making paper. They were making handmade paper, and then we started to hear about all the problems they had, that they had to live in these houses where there were 80 people with one bathroom only, where the children were subject to having to being I mean, they could be killed in any moment because there were drug addiction around, and it was a terrible situation. Obviously, I didn't really realize how bad they live, because one seems to live in different worlds. One lives in a world of cars, in a world of different things, and you don't have any idea how these other people live until you get in touch with them. So basically, they started saying that what they really needed was to even though they could make the ends meet by making handmade paper, we used to buy from them, and so they could live on that. What they really needed was a house. So anyway, we started at that time. There were some government programs, but they needed to give a down payment, so to be able to achieve those houses. So we tried to see where we could get the land, and then the first time was the mayor of Cali, who I mean I'm in Colombia, so the mayor of Cali was going to give us the land, but then finally he was put in jail, so he couldn't. So we got another mayor, who was the mayor of Palmira, to obviously we look at the beautiful farm, and the women went and looked at it, and it was a 30,000 meters. I don't know how many hectares that is, but the 30,000 meters is 3 hectares of land, and it was planted. They were growing tangerines, lemons, and oranges, and it was really, it was really wait a minute, not parasitic, like a paradise, but really like a paradise. So anyway, we wanted to, so we looked at this farm, and they were very happy, and we thought, that maybe the mayor of Palmira would do that. Well, the mayor of Palmira was also put in jail. So the owner of the farm came to us and said to me whether we wouldn't buy the land. So at that time, he was asking a lot of money for the land. And he was a Spanish man who had to leave Colombia because he had been threatened or something. So he said, yes, why don't you buy the land from me? And I said, well, I don't have what you're asking. You're asking about $200,000. So I don't have that. So he said, no, that was because, when we give something to the government, we have to bribe everybody. So, I mean, obviously I am talking about a different society. So you must put yourself in Colombia. So he said, no, I couldn't do that because, but I can give it to you much cheaper. I can give it to you for $50,000. So I said, so at that time, I mean, we have already had these women had gone and look at the land, and they had come from rural communities where they had, and they had were displaced by the war. They had come to Cali to live in these terrible conditions when they had to leave the places where they lived before. So they were fascinated by the farm. So anyway, I said, I got it out to my head, and I said, well, okay, I buy the land from you. You see, I am going to see how I get the $50,000. So anyway, I just got whatever savings there were around, and I bought the land, and obviously I thought it was cheaper, really, because if it was going to cost $200,000 to the government, and and he could do it for $50,000, well, there was something that I could spare. So that is the way we got this land, and in there, these women they self-build their houses. They self-build their houses. We got the materials from the government, and they self-build their houses, and 20 years later, I mean, this changed completely their lives. Now, obviously, they live in an open door community. It's like a condo in a way that people own their houses, but they also own part of the common land. They do own it, I mean, but they cannot sell it, or they cannot mortgage it, and they cannot lose it either. So that is the way it works. And now we have 80 houses there. And it's an open door community. Most of the women, I mean, it was interesting to see that the first the workshops that we did, only one woman could write a letter to a friend. None of them could write a letter to a friend to say what they wanted. So we had to put a board where they could paint what they wanted. They could, and the children also came and painted what they wanted. So, well, we presented lots of projects. I mean, lots of people have helped. Jen has helped. Many people have helped to make this a possibility. And now, 23 years later, the children are going to college. I mean, the children that grow up there are going to college when many of them didn't go even to primary school, and some of them didn't know how to read or write. and you know, it's changed the life of these people. So I don't know where you can do that in the United States. I don't know where in the United States people would receive that happily or not. But you know, just I did the story of Nachira, and obviously these women live in a, well, you know, I would say living away in a because they have their own they can plant their own food, they grow their own vegetables, they have chicken, about half or more than half, about 70 of them have chicken and hens, and some of them have a plantain, they have plantains, so they have the staple food there. And during the pandemic, it was fantastic because, you know, they could feed themselves. I mean, you know, and maybe as that they say, somebody gets up in the morning and says, you know, look, I don't have bread today, so we have a bread shop there, and so people exchange. I mean, there's not. It became very much of a sort of gift economy place. So maybe something that I don't know how you can do it in the United States, but I'm sure there will be many women who will be happy to do that. And obviously, I mean, as it says, I mean, it is a matriarchal community. The women manage the community, and they are the ones who may take the decisions.
Thank you, Angela.
Marta is our neighbor, so Marta knows about it. Marta
Quintero. Thank you, Angela. And thank you for that question, Susie. Well, I'm looking at our time. We've hit the top of the hour. We've been together for 2 hours already. It's shocking. We've had some really good questions, and we've had lots of really interesting responses. So I'd like to close us out with the women who are in our network. If you had any closing words to our listeners, Jen, would you like to, is there anything in particular that you'd like to leave us with?
No, just let's do this again.
Yes. Okay. Peggy, how about you? Did you have any last words you wanted to leave us with?
Well, I think we must continue to talk about the maternal gift economy. Its ever-presence, we need to highlight it, and we need to understand how it is used by the exchange economy to generate profits, and do everything that we can to help people to be aware of it, of what it is giving to that other very cruel and greedy place.
Yes. Okay. I don't see Angela M in our queue any longer, so I'm going to go to Maria Suarez. Are there any last words you wanted to leave our listeners with?
Yeah, thank you so much. This has been wonderful. It's amazing to be sitting here in this huge beach party and lionfish catch and talking about the gift economy, because I am seeing it around me and also in the talk with all of you in the whole world. So thank you so much. And I'm going to go out to dance and swim and have a great time and keep talking about it, working on it, living it. That's what we can always do regardless. And it's an amazing contribution, because if it is everywhere, we are everywhere, and we have to claim it and explain it and announce it. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Maria. Frieda, how about you? Any last words?
I just want to say that this was very nicely done. I was afraid it would be chaotic, but Letitia, you really managed it well. And the questions and everything were interesting, in the answers. So I enjoyed it. Thank you.
You're very welcome. Well, I will say it was quite lovely. Angela D, do you have any last words?
Unmute.
Muted. You need to unmute, Angela D.
Yes, come and visit us. Come and visit us in Nachira, Jen. We had Jen there for the launching of her book, para donar in Spanish, and everybody were very happy to have you. So please do come and visit us, and maybe we could put in the chat our webpage so that you can actually see what is like.
Okay. We'll definitely do that. And if not, maybe we can make sure that we put the link up with the recording of the video.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. And Marianne, would you like to speak?
Just a very small thing. I just want to say that I think this was a blessed coming together. And I am so glad to have been here and to have shared this with all of you. And I just want to say, keep on going. Blessed be to all of you.
Thank you, Marianne. All right, everyone. I really want to thank Diane, our support system in the background, who we don't see. She just keeps us steady, and I want to just thank her for always being there in the background. And honestly, Frieda, if it weren't for the fact that Diane was here and Liliana was ready to jump in at any moment to offer support with questions, and also Judith, who also was there, I wouldn't feel so relaxed and comfortable. And really, I want to thank Genevieve, who has for all these years encouraged us, been the rabble rouser, the radical rebel, you know, the anarchist to get us going here. Peggy,
Good troublemaker.
the troublemaker, good trouble. She does good trouble. Angela D, Angela M, Maria, Frieda, Mary Claire, all of you who actually attended today, offered your voice and your questions. We cannot make this shift without you. So when I say feel free, when you're feeling like you're crazy, write to our email address. We will assure you that you are on the right road. All right. And if you need a respite, the temple has a place for you to come, and we'll have soup, and you can talk about the gift economy with the women there, and maybe we'll have a convergence someday and we can all make a pilgrimage for the gift economy and Sekhmet. So we can think about that. I want to thank all of the International Feminists for the Gift Economy Network. We are all over the world, and now each of you in this room, we feel that you're part of us. Frank will be sure to answer your questions. Any of you, please be sure to write. If you don't get an answer right away, please don't give up on us. We're very busy in the world, but we do want to answer your questions. We're going to be together again in 2 weeks on October the 14th. So we look forward to that. And please enjoy your weekend. You know, it has been wonderful to be in this format. We are encouraged to do this again. So perhaps maybe, you know, twice a year we'll do this open forum. You can gather your questions. And here's an invitation to you. If you're feeling the need, invite us to come to your Zoom. Invite us to come to your community. Invite us to come and we'll talk about the gift. So please, everyone, put your cameras on, wave goodbye, be well, be kind to one another, and let's shift to the gift. We'll see you in 2 weeks. October the 14th. Take care, everyone. Bye for now. Yes, exactly. Big heart to everyone.